Welcome to video 2 in the CAD Apprentice course. In the first video, we took you through how to create the bubble wand handle, which has been dimensioned to be the right size for the hand. In this video, we're going to look at a number of ways that we can create the head of the bubble wand. To start with, we're going to do the most simple approach. I'm going to grab the torus shape from the basic shapes on the right hand side and drag this in. As you can see, this shape already has curved edges and already makes a ring shape. I can adjust the dimensions of this shape as we did with the wand by either manually dragging the thickness up and down or typing in a dimension like 4 mm like we did with the handle. Likewise, I can click on the corners and manually drag the shape around, or I can enter a dimension such as 40 by 40. As you can see, I have a very large torus shape with quite a thick wall, but the hole is there visible in the middle, and the 4 mm thickness matches the wand. My only task next would be to adjust the position so that it sits at the head of the wand. To do this, I'm just going to drag the shape and move it into approximately the right position, and then adjust the view on the workplane using my mouse so that I can view from above where the shape sits. I can then adjust the ring shape so it sits perfectly in the middle, and view from the side to see if those two line up. At the moment, when I bring those two shapes together, there's this small intersection here that I'd like to close off. What I'm going to do is slide my shape along until eventually that gap closes off. And there we have it. Those two parts come together as one. If I was happy with this as a bubble wand, I would now just zoom out, draw over both of the parts, and choose up here on the right hand side, group. When I do this, both parts become the same color and they're now combined as one. I'm going to press Ctrl Z and undo, and I'm going to delete my torus shape and introduce you to another way of doing this. This time I'm going to introduce a tube. The tube has a perfectly round circle, but as you can see the sides are not curved, they're a sharp edge. Again, I'm going to adjust the thickness to 4 mm. And now I have a tube or ring that matches the thickness of the wand and that makes a perfect circle. Similar to last time, I can slide this part into the right position, and from a position of looking down below onto the workplane, I can move the shape until it aligns perfectly to the center. And from the side, the two parts meet together. I'm going to check from above to make sure that there is no gap, which as you can see would appear here if I hadn't positioned the two parts correctly together. By sliding this part down, the two now combine. If I slide this part too far, you'll see I have this handle jutting through into the ring. Also, something that I don't want to happen. So the position of that ring is really important. Again, despite the fact that the color is the same, I'm going to zoom out to the home screen, draw over both, and press group so that the two parts join together as one. Lastly, let's go through another approach which is much more creative and free-forming. This time I'm going to pick any shape that is a 2D projection of a shape and bring it into the bed. Here I'm bringing from the basic shapes a polygon. I'm going to adjust its height to be 4 mm And as you can see, that shape is now the same thickness as the wand. What I'm also going to do is now introduce a cylinder from the basic shapes, which is a hole. I'm going to place it in the center. I'm going to adjust its dimensions to be 15 and 15. Looking from above, I can adjust the position of the shape to sit roughly in the center of this shape. I can also adjust the other parts so that the two intersect neatly. When I'm happy with my position, I draw over both and I group the parts together. And you'll see I've now created a hole into a shape. It's not in the perfect center, but I've definitely combined those two shapes together to create a hole from one into the other. I can now move the position of this shape over to the wand and adjust it accordingly. Again, I'm going to look from above to make sure there are no gaps appearing where the two join. Looks like I need to adjust the head of this one down until I'm happy that the two will overlap together. This doesn't look great. The hole is not perfectly in the center and it's not quite mirrored where it joins the handle, but for now it will do. I'm going to zoom back out, again draw over both and group them together so that they become one. I now have a bubble wand where I've created the head of the shape myself. I'm not really happy with it, but it certainly is a bit more creative than just dragging a tool from the menu bar. If I undo this and delete this part, let's think now what I could do to create some of the more creative designs of bubble wand we saw in the previous tutorial. Could I, for example, bring on a series of cylinders and create a pattern? Here, I've made multiple parts, and although I've done it by eye, all of them are grouping together. If I now draw over the collective group, making sure I capture all the parts and group these together, I now have a much more creative design. Again, I can adjust the height as the group will now become 4 millimeters high, and I can now adjust its position by dragging it towards the top. As you can see here, by looking at the center, I'm going to adjust it by eye so it interacts with the bubble wand handle, and I'm just going to make sure that the two parts will actually intersect together. This looks pretty good. And now zoom out, group the two together, and I now have my bubble wand. And as you can see, I've created the head of the design to look a bit more interesting than just a single shape. Over to you now. Use some of the basic shapes and bring them onto the work plane, group them together, or create your own shapes. And you can even take some of these hole shapes from up at the top of the menu and make different shapes of holes in existing basic shapes, just like I've done on the previous step. Over to you, and let's see what creative activity you can do. In the next step, we'll be adjusting the design of the base of the handle so that we have something to hold. Over to you.